Suction filtration is a step to help draw the solution through the filter. The equipment that you need, from left to right, is a clamp, a lab stand, a suction flask, a filter gasket, a Buchner funnel, distilled water, a scoop, something to filter, something to stir, and a filter paper. In order to perform a suction filtration, you need to have a mixture of a solution and a solid. The sample that we have here is simply solid, so we'll add some distilled water in order to make a mixture, and we'll stir it in order to dissolve anything that can dissolve. You need to secure the suction flask to the lab stand using a clamp. The most secure orientation is with the curved part of the clamp facing up. Secure the suction flask by placing the stem of the flask through the two prongs of the clamp. And then tighten the clamp around the flask. We use a water aspiration suction method in this lab, so you'll need to bring your flask near to a sink, and you'll attach one of the hoses from the sink to the stem of the suction flask. When the water is turned on, the flow of water will go into the sink and past the hose that's attached to the flask. The movement of the water will create a vacuum, which is the source of the suction for our suction filtration. In order to have good suction, you can't have any air gaps, so you need to place a rubber gasket on top of the suction flask before you place the Buchner funnel on top of the flask. The actual filtering is done by a piece of circular filter paper that you place inside the Buchner funnel. There are different sizes of filter paper, and in general you should choose the appropriate size for the application, but in our labs we'll always give you the appropriate size filter paper for your funnel. In order to hold the filter paper in place, you usually want to wet it with a small amount of whatever solvent is in your mixture. But before you can do that, you need to turn the water on to start the suction process. You'll want to turn the water flow to the maximum. You may need to slightly adjust the positioning of your funnel and gasket in order to get the maximum amount of suction. When you're ready, pour the mixture into the funnel, and you can use a stir rod to guide the pour if necessary. When you're pouring, never fill the funnel more than 2/3 of the way full, and you may need to wait briefly for some of the solution to pass through the filter before you add more of your mixture. If there's any leftover mixture that's stuck in that original container, you can rinse it into the funnel using small portions of whatever solvent you're using. Again, that's usually going to be water. If you want to slightly increase the rate of filtration, you can grab the sides of the funnel and press downwards to strengthen the seal, and this can increase the suction rate. When the mixture has been fully filtered, you should be left with solid on the filter paper, and the solution that's been filtered through into the suction flask is now known as the Filtrate, and it should have no solid in it at all. If your goal is to collect the solid, then at this point you should rinse the solid with a small portion of cold Filtrate. You want to use the Filtrate because it's already saturated with the compounds in the mixture and will not dissolve any more of them. And you want it cold because in general the solubility of solids goes down when temperature goes down. If instead your goal is to collect the Filtrate, you should use solvent for the rinsing step. Once you're entirely done your filtration, you need to break the suction. And to do this, you hold the flask and funnel in one hand and you pull down on the hose connecting the flask to the sink. You then turn the water on. And you always need to break the suction in that order.